But Jason Jones' performance on the latest J Street Vibes podcast was fantastic.
Oh, wow.
What did he give
as
us? He
always.
took a shot at somebody again. So I forgot.
Well, you took a shot at Cal.
Oh, I did take a shot.
So you
Unfairly, might I add, it's bad enough.
It was uncalled for.
Cal wasn't bothering anybody. Jason was just doing the podcast.
Cal can't even win a game. I mean, leave us alone. I mean, God. I mean, that was just so rude and unfair. I mean,
I like Cal too.
11 is bad enough.
I like Cal too. That's the crazy thing. I like Cal.
The Lakers are the best of Jason's teams right now. Hey, the Lakers are on the come up. I don't know.
I'll take it.
I don't know how high that ladder goes, but they're playing well. And Anthony Davis,
I'll take it.
He took a shot at the Clippers. That's what he did. That was
well. I just stated facts about the Clippers. I didn't take a shot at them. That if the Clippers win, if the Clippers win in LA, does anyone care? And like all 9 of their fans care.
Wow. Clipper Darrell rolling over in his grave right now.
Clipper Darrell's not dead. not that I'm aware of.
Steve Ballmer rubbing somebody's thighs.
Well,
right
that happens in
that happens every game.
Yeah, that's an HR violation for sure.
If you ever see the clip of that happen, the guy's like, "Bro, what are you? Get your hands off my
It is aggressive. It is really.
My man, he'd be like, "Man, we up by 3 in the second quarter."
I don't care how much money you make. Get your hands off my thigh.
And homeboy next to him be sitting there like, okay, yeah, we're winning. They're winning.
Unbelievable. De'Aaron Fox is back tonight. I know you guys talked extensively about this on the podcast. What does De'Aaron's return mean for the Kings in this particular game against Philly?
It means maybe that, quite simply, they can attack a lot. Maybe you try to put more pressure on Embiid defensively. Get De'Aaron going downhill, and really just you're back at full strength. And De'Aaron has a tendency when he does get hurt, he's really not out that long. So I don't think they should be so off after a couple of games to where he just can't jump right back in. And like we said on the pod, even if you fall down by 10, 15 against Philly, they're going to let you back in. I mean, that's what they do.
Mm-hmm. And that's what feels like it's been glaringly absent the last 2 games, is what Jay just mentioned right there. The Kings attacking the basket.
Yeah. I think that when you have De'Aaron out there, we talked about this on the show, we talked about it on the pod, but it is really one of those things where it just puts everybody back in their proper place. Mm-hmm. Now you got Davion, who, not saying he can't be a starter in this league, but I think right now his game, and for this team specifically, is better suited to come off the bench, be a guy that locks in defensively and, gives that type of energy. Whereas when you ask him to start, Davion, if we're going to win, we probably need 15 to 17. We need you to distribute the ball. Oh, yeah, and you still need to be that defender that we're talking about too. That's a lot on him right now. So Fox coming back, at the very least, no numbers aside, puts guys like Davion Mitchell back in their more comfortable spot right now.
Oh, definitely. And then, makes life easier on Sabonis. Mm-hmm. Makes everyone's life easier, Kevin Huerter is going to get much different looks when people realize that if De'Aaron gets downhill, he just naturally draws 2 or 3 guys once he gets rolling, mm-hmm. Makes life easier on everybody, Malik, everyone. I just think, like I said, it sets everything back in order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Sixers like to play slow. All of their numbers say they like to slow things down. Is it completely up to De'Aaron, Malik Monk to make sure that that's not a possibility for them tonight? Because Mike was adamant that they played too slow against Milwaukee, and that to me seems like it probably falls on De'Aaron and perhaps Malik quite a bit with the second unit.
And I think also with the rebounding, you got to rebound and you got to get the ball out and go. I mean, that Milwaukee game, they were getting hurt by second chance points a lot too. Lopez just walking into the paint and just, once they pulled Sabonis from the basket, poor Harrison Barnes and Malik and those guys trying to box out Lopez was no match. And then you can't get out and run if you can't get the ball. So right. I think you got to rebound better in those situations. And then I think Sabonis is a good enough outlet passer to also help the guards. It can't just be on De'Aaron, get the ball and take off running. Sometimes that break's got to get started because you get a rebound and get the ball to De'Aaron at half court. Now he's got the ball with 22 seconds at half court. Now he can really go.
Yeah. What would you do with Joel Embiid? Like there's not much anybody can do with him, but I know we talked to Kyle Draper and he talked about Boston, when they were going back and forth with Philly a few years ago. They had a lot of success doubling him once he put the ball on the ground and just kind of giving him maybe different looks and having the double come from different angles and things of that nature. But it feels like he's a much better passer now than he was maybe 3-4 years ago. So, I mean, what would you do with this guy?
I think you got to make him dribble. You got to force him to not get comfortable. I mean, I think when you see him struggle, a lot of times he's trying to get on with the ball and make a play off the bounce. And I'll take my chances with Joel Embiid dribbling the ball to get a basket from, say, 15, whatever, 12, 15 out than I would him just camping out or just getting a standing, open look from the perimeter. I think I think defensively you got to make him work. Try to pull him away from the basket. I mean, it's easier said than done. He's really one of the better defensive bigs in the league, but you got to make him work. You can't, and I think the Kings have an advantage in that Sabonis will make him have to work. He's a much bigger human being than Sabonis, but you got to do things differently. You got to put him in pick and rolls. You just got to make him work because he's gonna roll out of bed and get you 25 and 12 problem.
Right.
But you can't have is like that 53-point game he just had. You can't have him doing those 40 and 20s on you. If you're going to stay in the game, keep him in that, like I said, 25-point range. But he's going to get that, just because he's out there and he's going to get calls. He'll get to the line. But, yeah, defensively, you got to show him different things. And like I said, try to force him into turnovers. Make him try to be a decision maker off the bounce, not a decision maker on the block where he can kind of stand around and survey. Make him have to do things off the bounce.
December 23rd, the Sacramento Kings take on the Washington basketball team. We've got your tickets for that right now. Caller number 3, 916-909-1320. Again, caller number 3, 916-909-1320. December 23rd, the Sacramento Kings at the Golden One Center.
Is that because we don't want to offend Harry Potter fans and magicians and?
Well, now that the contest is over, I can tell you, for some reason that I've never understood, we're not allowed to say Wizards. We're not allowed to say the nickname of the opposing team. So we can say Washington or Portland or Chicago, and we can say the Sacramento Kings, but for some reason we can't say Wizards or Trailblazers.
I don't understand it.
I don't understand it either. I've never asked. It's just like, all right, whatever.
Or you still those one ad, so they'll say the big game in February.
That's right. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to use the Super Bowl as it's tied to a contest. You have to say the big game or the game or just allude to it.
Yeah,
because no one knows what you're talking about,
no,
and we have to just treat everybody as if they're stupid.
Like what game are they talking about? A football game in February? Second weekend?
A big game? What?
Cal and Stanford got moved to February,
Pro Bowl, right? It's the Pro Bowl. It's got to be the Pro Bowl.
The interesting thing is, like, even with the Super Bowl, like, I can understand, like, if we trademark it and you're, using it to some financial gain, you need to pay us.
Yeah,
I get that. This whole thing with the Kings playing Washington, I don't get that.
I don't either. I don't either, because the Sacramento Kings and the Washington Wizards are owned by the same entity. So, like, what is actually the issue right here? Again, there was no fine print in this. It was just like, don't say Wizards. All right, bro. Like, just give me the tickets. It's fine. No one cares.
They're playing one of 2 Los Angeles teams. That's which one.
You'll find out when you get there.
Oh, is today a 4:00 start? My phone. I thought it was a 4:30.
I thought it was 4:32, but somebody said 4.
Yeah, my phone just
alerted
me.
I think it is 4 because I got the alert about the injuries at 2:30. So that's 90 minutes out. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So hey, we're taking you all the way up until tip, baby.
Tip off, baby.
Harden and Embiid, not necessarily tonight, but overall, is that something you think? This is a team, the Philadelphia 76ers, it's championship or bust. Like, there's no, like, they need to be at least in the NBA Finals. Do you see that working?
No.
Okay.
I just don't.
Me either.
I don't trust James past April. I mean, his history has shown the further he goes, eventually he's just going to decline. And we're talking about an older James Harden.
Yeah.
This is an MVP James Harden. And I just can't see it. I just don't. I mean, look at the pieces they have on that team. I like Tyrese Maxey when he's available, but I mean, my man PJ Tucker. I mean, how much longer can he be counted on to be that guy to hold things together?
Right.
Tobias Harris is Tobias Harris. I mean, they're just. I wonder if the year they lost to Toronto was their peak.
I think so. Or the Atlanta year. I mean, they probably. I don't know if they would have had enough to beat Milwaukee, but they were number 1 seed when they lost to Atlanta.
Yeah, I just wonder if they've peaked already. I just don't. I don't see how much better they can get if they got to rely on 30-plus-year-old James Harden to be what he was for Mike D'Antoni in Houston. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and the other thing about James too is how does he kind of accept this part of his career, right? Like you talked about it last night. He doesn't have the quickest first step anymore. He's a little bigger than he was, in his prime. He's a step slower. How does he adjust? I talked about like at the end of the game, that ball is probably going to Joel, and James is going to be like a spot up shooter. We haven't seen him in his career, aside from maybe OKC, be okay with the second fiddle type role. How does he accept that here in Philadelphia or anywhere else in the latter part of his career?
And the thing is, they need him to be more than just that. They just can't rely on him to just kind of be a secondary type guy. They need him to be near an all-star level player or at an all-star level to be a championship contender. And can he do it in spurts? I think he can, but is he going to be that 30-something? And plus, remember, the rules changed. He can't get his 15 to 18 free throws a night.
Yeah.
So much of his game was understanding the rules and saying, okay, watch this. Let me swing through, get my 2 free throws, and all of a sudden he's got 20 points, but he's taking 8 shots. If he can't get that, and then if he's not as quick, he's not getting the same calls, guys don't have to reach as much to guard him.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if he is, a top 10 player like that anymore, where you say, okay, we got a plan for him like an MVP. You got to do it with Joel, but you can't necessarily with James, which is why you needed Tobias Harris to be maybe better than what he's been. You can't have PJ Tucker. I mean, if they got PJ Brown up there, we got real problems.
PJ Tucker, a fashion icon, though. That's what he's good for. He's good for the walk into the game, and then after that, it's just kind of a coin flip.
You can't you can't be a 3-and-D guy with no 3. Yeah. So I mean, I just don't know if this team can get past the second round of the playoffs. I just don't know. I mean, I think they'll probably be a top 4 team in the East, but I wouldn't take them ahead of Boston, Milwaukee.
Yep.
Cleveland.
This is for you. Yeah, I feel like they had a legit championship window, and it like slammed shut during the Ben Simmons nonsense in which they just refused to move on from him and essentially wasted an entire season.
Well, even to the point that Jason said, I mean, the biggest travesty of all this is letting Jimmy Butler go.
Sure.
I thought that was the perfect city for him, the perfect team, the perfect group. They were about to do big things. They had him there. Feels like he wanted to stay there. And for whatever reason, whether they didn't give him money or they didn't want to change a coach or whatever, they weren't able to bring him back. And that, Jason talks about losing to Toronto. That's probably when everything died for Philly.
Yeah, and when you had Jimmy, you have to worry about Ben in the fourth quarter because Jimmy had the ball.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then Ben could kind of do whatever it is Ben does. And without Jimmy Butler, you put even more focus on what Ben Simmons couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Then he became the scapegoat for that Atlanta series, which I thought was completely unfair. He was terrible, but didn't Embiid have like 10 turnovers that game? And I mean, it was amazing how that whole series got blamed on one guy.
They lost 3 games at home.
Yeah, and I'm not here to cape for Ben Simmons, but I just thought I still find it interesting that entire series is still blamed on that one guy, as if we all didn't watch that series and didn't watch Joel not play well and Doc make questionable decisions. And all the other things that went wrong. But Ben was an easy scapegoat. Ben's not there, and they still probably won't win a championship. So I guess they'll probably be blaming Ben for the next 5 to 7 years. How the Ben Simmons years set them back, as if they didn't contribute to Ben being the way he is or
Right.
was with them. As if he just showed up and they was like, we don't know why he's doing this. Why is he not being accountable? Maybe because you guys created a culture where losing was okay, and
Mhm.
and then you decided no, now it's time to win. He's like, but I like this. I was chilling. I got a max deal.
Yeah.
Switch gears here for a minute, if you don't mind, and we'll get back to the
Sure.
Kings and the Sixers in that game tonight. You wrote extensively about the Shaq documentary. I think it's a 4-part series. I tried to get into it. I watched the first episode. I didn't really feel like it hooked me. I haven't gone back to it. What's your review of that documentary, and what you wrote about it?
See, for me, I had to get past the first one. Once you get
Okay.
into the second and the third, you start getting.
Okay.
As a Shaq guy, I knew a lot of that stuff. When
Okay.
you get into the later episodes, when he's talking about being hooked on painkillers, and you got Gary Vitti crying, saying that I should have told the media how much pain Shaq was really in. Like that 03 year where he, remember the whole I heal on company time?
Mm-hmm.
We really didn't know how much pain he really was in.
Mhm.
And he goes into, if I didn't take a painkiller or two, so say, take one. I'm a big dude. I'll take 2 of them. Now I'm sleep half the day. Now I've got, blood when I use the bathroom, but I feel good when I play.
Mhm.
And the way he described it to me was that he could have a good game without the painkillers, but he couldn't be Shaq without them. And I think that's a part that I had never really heard him talk about. He talked about extensively how, shockingly, professional athletes cheat on their wives. I mean, I know no one would ever believe that, but he kind of gets into how it affected his family and how he really loved 2 women in his life, and basically being rich and young and stupid, he lost them both.
Mhm.
And talking about coming home in Miami and that house is empty. And if it's Shaq, it's a pretty big house.
Mhm.
And he said really the only thing that kept him sane was playing basketball still, because wife was gone. And he talks about stuff like, to me, those were the not once you get past the first episode, getting into those moments, him talking about his insomnia after his sister and Kobe died, the fact that he regrets that. And he's talked about it too before, but how Kobe never called him, he didn't call Kobe, now he can never call Kobe again.
Mhm.
And it wasn't that they were beefing at the time Kobe died. It's just the idea that you got 2, bullheaded guys, and they might not have been mad at each other, but they certainly like going like, "Hey, let's go hang out." And he blames himself, and he kind of beats himself up a lot about the whole idea that what, I don't call people. My sister died. I think his sister died at 40.
Mhm.
He talks about how that he just couldn't sleep, and he was like, he can't go to bed before 5 a.m. He
Man.
just stays up all night because he said he just can't sleep. And he said, so to me, those were the moments where I just kind of said, wow, that's what I was there for. Man, I know about his career. I know about, breaking the rims and all that stuff, Reebok. And also that they get into the stuff where they actually talked to Penny about him leaving Orlando and how
Mhm.
he never talked to Penny before he left. He was,
I remember he said I think it was on the 30 for 30 of that Magic team, and on that episode, he's sitting next to Penny and I think Dennis Scott or somebody, and I think he apologized there. He was like, "I didn't handle that right, guys. Like whether or not I was going to stay or not, that's one thing, but I didn't handle that right." I find Shaq kind of fascinating when you get him in real moments, right? When he's not
yeah,
being like Shaq, the personality, and and a lot of bravado and stuff like that. When there are moments when there's interviews or documentaries, well, I want to see this one too, where he talks like a real person, and he opens up a lot. Like he's pretty interesting when he does get to that point.
yeah, the director, I talked to him for the story too. He talks about how sometimes he just let the camera roll, and some of the good stuff he got was just letting the camera roll when they were done talking. And
Mm,
that's where he talked about the insomnia. They were like, "Can we see you tomorrow?" He's like, "No, I don't get up before. I don't go to bed till 5." He said, "We
mm,
can't do no early morning thing." He said, "I can't sleep." They're like, "Why not?" He said, "I can't. I haven't slept since Kobe and my sister died." and they died within 3 months of each other, I believe. And so he, and like you said, when he really gets into when he talked about his marriage's ending, and when I talked to him for the story, he said he just thanks God his kids still talk to him. Because they ever interview his oldest daughter, she was like, well, he was there, but he really wasn't present. Like I would see him, but it wasn't like he was dad there all the time.
Yeah.
And so when he gets into those moments, and you, like I said, you don't hear a lot of professional athletes admit, hey, maybe me being in the streets all the time was a bad idea. You don't hear a lot of guys just open up and say that. And when I was talking to him, I'm like, hey, I've been through a divorce. He's been through a divorce. Some of those feelings you go through in that moment transcend money. There's just human feelings you feel about, man, I'm used to coming home from, I was used to coming home from a Kings game from working and seeing my kids. He's used to playing and seeing you come home and like, it's empty in here. It's quiet. It's and him talking about that. And to me, those were the cool moments, and hearing people, how basically the Lakers' old trainer, Gary Vitti, said Shaq played too much. Like sometimes that childish stuff wasn't funny. He's got to start by basically Shaq was playing and smacked him. And he had to like take a pain shot because, Shaq's a big guy. And he's like, I wanted to kill him. But the common denominator is everyone still loves the big guy. Everyone loves Shaq. They're like, even when he made you mad, there was a genuineness about him where you couldn't help but love him. Like I said, you got Gary Vitti crying because he was like, I should have leaked to the media how much pain Shaq was really in and what he really had to play through, because during his career, he took a lot of criticism for not being a real leader and not being serious enough. And they even go into the fact of how much, the kind of the force it takes for him to run. Like he played it up to 400 pounds. And the amount of force that puts on your joints to be that big and to still move that fast. I mean, there's some fascinating things as you get into it later where he kind of opens up, talks about all that stuff as well. So like I said, as a guy who's like a big Shaq guy, I definitely learned some things I had never heard him talk about.
Yeah.
Well, this hooked me more than the first episode. This conversation's got me significantly more interested in the next 3 episodes.
I had an advantage too, though, Damian. I got to watch all 4 straight. I got them early, so I watched it 4 in a row. So I feel you on the first one, but I watched them all straight. So watching them back to back to back, it was like, okay, oh, wow. And then by the end, I was like, damn, this is like good stuff.
I feel like there's also an element of Shaq being Shaq in the first episode.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, by the way you described it, that doesn't appear to be the case through the next 3 episodes. But there's a lot of the personality Shaq in the first episode, and it was like, oh, I felt like I was watching wrestling. Like this is a work. This is like they're telling me a story here, and I don't know if this story is real or not.
There's Shaq, and then there's Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And when they get into his kids talking, you get into his kids and his mom, and like I said, they get Pat Riley in there talking about him, the argument they had when they traded him to Phoenix, all that kind of stuff, and him opening up about what it was like at the end of your career when you realize you're not really as good as you were, still out there. You get into all that stuff later on. Yeah, I feel early on it's kind of like, okay, yeah, we've seen this before, but the further you go, the more it's like, wow, this stuff is pretty good.
We ironically we're talking about the Kings and Sixers and Joel Embiid and how dominant of a big man he is in today's game, and he's unbelievable. For guys like Jesse, who's early 20s, the phenomenon that was Shaquille O'Neal,
oh man,
when he stepped on the scene. I mean, for him to be that big, and like even the way they play the game, like you see Joel, he's this big 7'1", guy, and Joel's kind of, spinning away and shooting fadeaways and shooting a 3. Shaq was playing basketball how every kid thought they would play basketball if they were the biggest guy in school. Like he was like, no, I'm bigger than everybody. I can jump. I'm gonna tear the rim down. I'm dunking on everybody's head. Like he played like that. Looking back, I didn't appreciate it really at the time, but looking back, it's amazing what he was able to do.
Yeah, he did some things where you look back and go, oh my God, like how was that even fair? I mean, anytime they keep changing rules to adjust to you, I mean, the stuff, and I think a lot of times you get a better appreciation if you can ever be around Shaq in person. I've been around a lot of NBA centers, and Vlade is not a little guy.
Mhm.
He looks like a little guy next to Shaq.
Mm.
And I think people just didn't appreciate how big, not just this physically big Shaq is, and just the skill. I mean, his footwork was something to behold. Like when they start going into his spin moves and how he got to the rim, and and another favorite part for me is the referee. I think it was Bob Delaney on there, pretty much saying, "Yeah, we probably didn't referee him fair his whole career, because it took so much to knock him down. We let guys probably just tackle him unfairly, just run into him." So I mean, I think a lot of times,
I remember the New Jersey backboard that he tore
That's
down when the
crazy.
shot clock hit
Oh
him.
my god!
But the one that he did in Phoenix, where the whole extension just like went down in like slow motion, it just went down back and forth before it was just basically sitting on the floor. I don't think we've seen anyone do that since him.
No, we haven't. And I think
they've had to have like restructured
Yeah.
basketball extensions to keep that from happening because of him.
I don't think we've ever seen anyone do what he did to Chris Dudley either.
Oh,
that's
Chris
That
Dudley threw the ball out.
that is still to me
Chris
the
Dudley
most
knows
disrespectful dunk I have ever seen in my life. I mean, just the way he did that. I mean, what could you do? He just got so mad he threw the ball at him. Like
Chris Dudley's reaction makes it so much worse because that's literally what you do on the playground. You just
yeah.
you just throw
He
the
was
ball
like, "What if you did? Throw this ball at you?"
he threw it at him from hella far away.
Yeah, Shaq was at half
He made
court.
Shaq all the way at the other end of the court.
There was no sting on the ball at all by the time it got to Shaq.
He caught it like Debo does. Just
Also, I just want to, thank God that Shaq didn't really want to hit Brad Miller.
woo. Yeah.
Ooh, that
Yeah.
would have been.
That would have been criminal charges. That would have been nasty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That would have been nasty. I mean, like I said, Shaq is, I've met Yao Ming, I've met Shaq, I've met Sean Bradley. Yao and Shaq are taller than, Yao and Sean are taller than Shaq. Shaq is still the biggest person I've ever met. And if he would have connected with Brad that day, would have rewrote history in a bad way.
Yao was significantly wider than I thought. Like Yao was gigantic.
Yeah.
I thought he was just a tall, skinny dude like Sean Bradley was. He was not. He was thick. He was all right. We're done.
It's like dealing with a sophomore class.
All right, we're getting out of here on that. Generation X is done for the day. Jay, we appreciate you as always. Thank you, my brother.
No problem. Anytime, guys. Catch you next week.